So if they were fighting Britain, why would the Treaty of Peace and Friendship stop the war between the United States and Britain? They can't answer that. So what is in that? So they want you to now think that you being a part or having connection to a national government is somehow wrong, or that's somehow going against the prophet. But the prophet never said nothing about naturalization. He only used the word nationalization. Some Moors believe that the way to naturalization is naturalization because you have to. Nobody was actually born a Moor or Moorish American in the literal sense because of the brainwashing and the 200 some odd years of conflict. Born consciously as Moors. You understand? However, if we are not that, it's hard for you to become that if there wasn't an inkling of it in you. Most people do things that they like doing when they was children. And whether they realize it or not, usually pattern themselves after their parents. The more you say you don't want to be like your mother and your father, methinks thou dost protest too much, because most times you become that. My father was a writer. I became a writer, not because I wanted to. I didn't even realize that that's what I was until one day he put me on like, damn, yeah, I do that. See what I'm saying? So nationalism, right, is an ideology and movement that promotes the interests of a particular nation, as in a group of people, especially with the aim of gaining and maintaining nation sovereignty, self-governance over its homeland. So in order to have a nation, you have to have a land, because nation and nature, or netter, we know is the same thing. Nationhood, natural, right? Nationalism holds that each nation should govern itself free from outside influence. That's self-determination. That a nation is a natural idea and basis for a polity. Okay? That the nation is the rightful source of political power, which is popular sovereignty. It further aims to build and maintain a single national identity based on shared social characteristics such as culture, language, religion. Okay? Right, but we got to understand that all Moors, even though, like, you have Moors who are referring to themselves as nationals, right? But the way they act, what they're actually practicing is communism, which is the opposite of nationalism. Because communism in the political and social sciences, right, which comes to us from the Latin communis, right, which means common or universal, is the philosophical, social, political, and economical ideology and the movement of whose ultimate goal is the establishment of a communist society, which is socio-economic order structured upon the common ownership of the means of production and the absence of social classes, money, and the state. Right? But whenever you see things on communism, who's running stuff? The people or the state? Who? Who? Exactly. See, communism includes a variety of schools of thought, which broadly include what? Marxism, anarchism, right? And anarcho-communism, as well as political ideologies grouped around both. All these share the analysis of the current order of the social society stems from the economic system. The opposite of communism then is what? Capitalism. So when you get Moors or so-called blacks, right, that basically create situations in which uh, they have a unit that's not based in a national identity, but they're collecting money for a religious ideology, that is a form of communism. unless sanctioned by the state. You understand what I'm saying? Because they want to get rid of what? Social classes, money, and the state itself. So if the state itself, whatever state that you're in, is in the way of communism, meaning your mental state, right? Your geographic state, whatever state is opposite of that, whatever social class or ideology exists, has to go. That's why Chinese people, again, China, is establishing a communist empire where? Through capitalism in Africa. No, I think that we were closer to a communist society in the 80s. Now it's past that. But let's look at capitalism. Capitalism is an economic system based on the private ownership of the means of production. You see that? Communism is about common ownership. So that sounds good, right? Of the means of production, whatever means that may be. So that sounds good. Common, us all together, communists, right? Communists, right? However, if one of us has a state, right, that does not agree with that, then you create what's called the struggle of the classes, the class war. And that class war usually exists between what? Communism and capitalism, right? The two C's, like in the Coco Chanel logo, which is really the Vesica Pisces, right? Capitalism, which is an economic system based on the private ownership, means of production, and their operation for profit. Characteristics central to capitalism include private property, capital accumulation, wage labor, voluntary exchange, price system, competitive markets, and in a capitalist market economy, decision-making investments are determined by every owner of wealth. Therefore, you are not considered a member of the capitalist society if you are not participating in the capitalist model. Now, in this, do you see anything, did it say anything about jobs in this definition in capitalism? Do you see anything about jobs in it? Did it say anything about going to work? Did it say anything about unemployment? Whereas the prices and the distribution of goods and services are mainly determined by competition in goods and services markets. Okay, so in capitalism, it's all about what's called a free market economy. That means, does anybody know what that means? A free market economy is an economy of which your market is free to go into other markets and subdue and do whatever they want to do with it. At one point, this was called marginalizing. Now, all of this, as you see, did you see anything in these about anything about a nation? Even in communism, did it say anything about the nation? It only used the term society. Did you notice that? Same thing with capitalism. Had nothing to do. You see anything when it says in the wealth of nation, anything like that? Didn't see anything like that, did you? No. Democratic socialism. Does anybody know what that is? That's what the Panthers was practicing. Well, this is what eventually offshoot groups like the Yahoo movement and these other movements that came out, right, are practicing. So when you hear them say democratic socialism, do you know what that means? Hillary Clinton, when she was in doing her thing in college, at one point was flirting and was an admitted democratic socialist. Eventually, she dropped the socialism. Democratic socialism is a socialist political philosophy which advocates that political democracy alongside with socially owned economy, with an emphasis on workers' self-management and democratic control of economic institutions within a market for some form of decentralized planned socialist economy. Come on, we're adults, so we got to look at what this is really saying. What this is saying is that democratic socialism is a social political philosophy. This is not even a political philosophy. This is, well, it's a political philosophy that is not rooted in the natural flow of what we consider politics, meaning that democratic socialism didn't exist in ancient Kemet. You understand? We wasn't doing that. This is a modern thing. But they want you to think that modern things, because they're modern, are what are the standard of what things were. But essentially, when they say a decentralized plan for a socialist economy, what they're talking about is removing the right of the people to have control over the democratic process that they use in their society. This is another form, another way of saying you know what another way of saying democratic socialism is? Anybody know what democratic socialism is also called? I'll let you know. It's called Nazism. The Nazis were democratic socialists. Think about that. Like I said, the people who put Hitler in power was not the Rothschilds in them. They came into the game later when they realized, oh, this dude is about to really pop, so let's find a way to finagle the money up in behind this dude. He got elected by the workers. You see, the lower class, the civil servants, the bus drivers, these type of people. Guess who elected Donald Trump? The bus drivers, the poor white people. You dig what I'm saying? The people who are also disenfranchised. Exactly. The workers, right? The minions. Thank you. So-called white America. Low, you know, what they consider. It's not even me saying it. They consider them lowbrow, so-called NASCAR dads. That was another name they used to come up for them. All these other ways of saying white people. So because the Indians of America were originally Muslims, they have their own system of government. That system of government was not dependent upon what we consider that stuff to be today. And so that history again had to be washed away. This is Mozart, who they also have as the Chevalier. This, you know, is the other guy that they've been passing off as this guy that was painted or whatever during the Reconstruction. Why would you go to such a degree to do that? Because everybody loves Beethoven, right? So if everybody loves Beethoven, he can't be black, he can't be melanated. Those Moors that understand what to do with their silver bonds and stuff and what's going on in places like Pulaski County. This was the flag of Count Pulaski. Okay? But they'll have you thinking, oh, Pulaski, that's Polish. Yeah, but the Polish was Moors too. They was melanated too, up to a certain point. Why you think they're hated by white people? Look at these people, man. These ain't white people. Look at these dudes, man. With feathers and scimitars. It's in America. It's in Pulaski County. You know what I'm saying? This is where they named the county after. This is a Moor. Excuse me. This is a painting of Count Pulaski riding into battle. Yeah. It's New York, but at one point it was just York. At another point it was Gotham, Amsterdam, Brutium. You know what I'm saying?